Hello, my name is Don Shedd.
Where and when were you born, sir?
I was born in Rutland, Vermont, September 30th, 1922.
So how old are you right now?
97.
Do you feel like you're 97?
No,
What does 97 feel like?
well, I feel pretty good at 97.
And tell me, sir, what branch of the service were you in during the war?
Marines,
And what specific units were you a part of?
the 1st Division, A15, A Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Regiment.
And what was your specific job in Company A?
To learn how to use the rifle and defend myself
So you were a rifleman.
at first, yeah. And later I was the BAR man, Brown, Browning automatic rifle.
You're doing great. And could you just state for the record, where all did you see action during the war?
The first island was Guadalcanal, and we were there for 4 months. And after a break in Australia, we regrouped, and the next island was Great Britain.
New Britain.
New Britain. Thank you. And after that, another break was Peleliu in the Palau Islands. And that's where I got wounded.
Where on your body were you wounded, sir?
In my ankle. It was middle of the night, and the Japs had Japs had fired, I think probably a 37 millimeter shell that burst in the top of the trees, and a piece of shrapnel hit me in the ankle, and not too serious, but my brother Bob was not too far away, and so I kind of spoke up and said, I'm okay, but I was hit. So Bob stayed on Peleliu for quite a while, and I was shipped to a hospital ship that was anchored probably 10 miles off the island. And that's where I saw my first female nurse on the ship that hadn't seen a girl in a year. And I got to the ship, and a few days later, a doctor, I guess, withdrew the piece of shrapnel, and so my ankle was okay, and what happened. And then I was transferred to can't think of the name.
That's fine. But after that, you were sent back to the States.
No. At that point, I was sent to New Caledonia and recuperated. Then I was sent back to the States by a Liberty ship or something like that, which was a long ride. And I finally got back to San Diego and was shipped to Hingham, Mass., where there was a naval ammunition depot. And after that, I was put on a troop train from the West Coast to the East Coast. And then I got better and was ready to be shipped back to the States, or shipped back to an outfit that would probably be going to Japan. But then Truman had the atom bomb dropped, and that was I was out in a few days, discharged, and that was the end of my time in the Marines.
So the atom bomb saved your life?
I suppose so.
Thank you for sharing that, sir. I just want to backtrack a little bit before we go more into your service. Just hang on 1 second. So, you mentioned that you were born in Vermont. Did you grow up in Vermont?
Yes.
Talk to me about growing up. What kind of things did you do for fun as a kid?
So I was on the farm. My father was a farmer, and so we moved several times to different farms, and it was always a farm.
What kind of farm was it?
A dairy farm. We had cows and dogs and cats and goats and in maple, we made maple syrup, and we used to butcher a cow and pickle it. We had a brine, and we'd cut the meat up in chunks and put it in this brine, and that's what we ate during the winter.
And tell me, Mr. Shed, how many were in your family?
Well, there was 5 children, my mother and father, and a hired man, and sometimes a hired lady. So we usually had a big table to feed.
And how many of the children were boys? How many of the children were boys?
Oh, 3 boys, us 3 boys, and 2 girls. And the 2 girls are, one of them is celebrating her 80th birthday in a couple days.
So she's just a kid.
Yeah.
Tell me, Mr. Shed, what are your memories of the Great Depression years and the struggles that your family faced during that time?
Well, the only thing I can think of is my father lost quite a bit of money. We were poor, but lost quite a bit of money. The bank went broke during the Depression. But we got through that.
Besides working on the farm, did you have any other jobs before you went into the service?
Oh, well, then my folks moved from Vermont to Connecticut. The war had broken out, and we moved to Connecticut. My father got a job in Colt, C-O-L-T, Colt Firearms. And my brother, younger brother, Paul, was still in high school. And Bob got a job in another Connecticut factory. And I got a job in a woodworking factory where they made davenports and stuff, the wood part. And then the 3 of us joined the Marines the same day.
Tell me that story. What caused you all to join the Marine Corps, and tell me about the day you all actually enlisted.
Well, the war had broken out, and most every man or boy was joining something. So we decided we'd join the Marines. And so one day we joined the Marines in Springfield, Mass. And a few days later, we were we went to Springfield, Mass, and headed for Parris Island.
Do you remember what year you enlisted?
Uh,
It would have been 1942.
yeah, yeah, 1942.
So, Mr. Shed, how did you actually hear about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Uh, I can't remember that particularly. I don't know whether we had a radio then or not.
That's okay. Um, either way, so after your brothers, and you were in the Marine Corps, uh, talk to me about boot camp at Paris Island.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was quite a change. You got yelled at and you did what the fellow said. You did what you were told, whether you liked it or not.
What do you remember about your drill sergeant?
Oh, they just told you and you did what they said. You didn't argue at all.
Do you remember the physical regimen that you had to do in boot camp?
Well, I don't think at that time that they worried too much. They just wanted you to follow the orders, and there was nothing else to do.
So after boot camp, what happens to you all?
After boot camp, we went to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and there we got different orders and a lot of marching and so forth. We weren't there too long. After that, we were shipped to overseas.
Tell me about your journey overseas.
Yeah, going over, we were about a month, I think, because we went to New Zealand. And in New Zealand, the dock workers were on strike. So we had to help unload the ship.
Yourself?
That's right. Yeah. And so we got that done. And then it wasn't very long before we were headed to Guadalcanal.
Tell me about the actual journey on the ship, Mr. Shed, to New Zealand. Where did you all leave from?
We left, where did we leave from? You're rocking my brain. Norfolk, Virginia. We left from Norfolk, Virginia, and went down through the Panama Canal and landed in New Zealand.
What was that like going through the Panama Canal?
Oh, that was interesting because we could just look out the porthole and see the workings of the Panama Canal.
Tell me, Mr. Shedd, when you were aboard the ship, what did you all do to entertain yourselves? You know, how did you spend your time?
Well, part of it was working in the galley, cleaning the dishes, the trays, whatever. And other than that, you didn't do much.
You don't remember playing any card games?
After a while, yeah, we played mainly pinochle.
Did you all have any scares with the Japanese submarines?
No.
Do you remember what you all would do to avoid the submarines?
We went way around.
And so when you got to New Zealand, what do you remember about the way they treated you all, the civilians?
Oh, great. They were always great. In New Zealand, I learned what steak and eggs was. Because New Zealand had a lot of lamb. And
because, you know, most of the men from New Zealand were not there. A lot of the New Zealand men were off fighting in North Africa.
yeah,
And so for the civilians, this was the first time that they would have some kind of military presence back on the island.
yeah,
And you know, they looked at you guys as saviors to protect them from the Japanese.
yeah.
So talk to me about the journey over to Guadalcanal from New Zealand, sir.
Well, let's see. Well, in fact, I've got a Legion magazine here someplace. It shows that. And Karen?
Don't worry about that, because I want to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, but I need some. Yeah, have you got that Legion magazine?
What do we do with it? I'll find it. You're off.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay,
I think he wants to show you.
yeah. Now I followed you up.
No, that's fine. I can put it on pause. Put it up a little higher? Okay, what are we looking at, Mr. Shedd?
This is when we were landing on Guadalcanal.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, see the Higgins boat way out there?
Perfect. Thank you for showing that to me.
Yeah.
So let's continue with your story, though. So tell me about the invasion of Guadalcanal. Before you actually made the invasion, what were you all told aboard ship about where you were going to go and what you were supposed to do?
I don't know what they knew. what we just landed. And, within a few minutes, we heard a crack, some kind of a rifle going off, and our first casualty was killed. He was a scout going out to see what was ahead, and he was killed right off.
Were you in the same area when he was hit?
Well, the same company, yeah.
Do you remember his name?
Not right now.
That's okay. Besides that one casualty, when you guys were going in on the Higgins boats, were you taking on any enemy fire?
Not much that I remember.
Because from what I've seen, you know, there was a big expectation that there would be a big resistance, but the resistance wasn't very much.
No.
On the initial landing.
Right.
So, please continue, Mr. Shedd. After you actually made the landing on Guadalcanal, what happens to you?
Well, we just, I think the next morning we what did we do? We just advanced a little ways and set up again.
Can you describe the terrain on Guadalcanal?
Well, mostly coconut plantations. Many of the islands had big coconut plantations, and that's what it was.
And what do you remember about the first Japanese soldiers that you came across?
I don't remember seeing any of them. Wasn't like a wall of soldiers. Everything was kind of hid in the brush and long time ago.
Yeah. There was an incident on Guadalcanal where the Japanese Navy would shell you guys. After, your Navy, the American Navy, had dropped off supplies, but they were afraid they were going to get sunk. So they left.
Right.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, they left, and we had the rumor that they had left, and so we were on our own. But after several days, the Japs left.
The Japanese ships.
Yeah.
But what do you remember about the naval bombardment before they left?
Well, all I remember was that there was a Navy were firing at each other, and these huge explosions you could see way over on the horizon. and oh, I don't remember anything up close, but
That's okay. I know some of the veterans who I've met, they mentioned that after the Japanese Navy would fire at the American ships, they turned their guns and fired on the Marines on shore. So there would be these big naval shells that would bombard the Marines, and a lot of the coconut trees would be uprooted and would explode.
well, I don't remember the coconut trees exploding, but
That's okay. If you could tell me, you were among the first wave of Marines to actually land on Guadalcanal.
correct.
Do you remember the day that you landed?
I don't know whether it was September 9th or not. I can't remember.
That's fine. Talk to me about some of the patrols that you went on Guadalcanal, sir.
I don't remember much about many patrols. I guess I was lucky not to get in.
Sure. What do you remember about the heat?
Well, it was warm, good and warm, but I don't.
Do you remember anyone from your outfit suffering from heat stroke or heat exhaustion?
Not particularly.
Now, you were in the same company as one of your brothers.
Yeah.
Which brother was it?
Well, both of them, I guess.
They were both in A company.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought only one of them was. What was that like serving with two of your brothers?
Well, I don't know. It's just natural for us three to be together.
Were you also in the same platoons, or they separated you?
At first, we were. Yeah.
Do you have any memories of your experiences with the tropical diseases, sir?
Yeah, I had malaria. I got malaria down there.
On Guadalcanal?
Yes.
What is that like to have malaria?
Well, you just got, you're cold. You feel cold, but you're sweating.
How did you get over it?
We used to take quinine, and then they switched to Adabrin.
And what would Adabrin do to your skin?
Well, it made you yellow. So I looked like a Jap at times.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you don't remember seeing any alive Japanese soldiers firing on Guadalcanal, that they would stay hidden. But do you remember coming across Japanese casualties?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you tell me about that, sir? Or do you remember what the engagement was?
Not really. I don't.
So there was a story that I'm just looking up about you. Oh, where'd it go? We'll come back to this, but when you all first got to Guadalcanal, what would you do to try to combat the mosquitoes? You know, I mean, did you have any kind of mosquito nets or?
Well, at night, uh, after we got some of our supplies, we had netting. We'd sleep in a hammock and have zip up our mosquito netting. Other than that, I don't know.
What do you remember about the Japanese planes?
Well, all I remember at night, they'd send Charlie over a lone little airplane that would fly over and maybe drop one bomb and just to keep you awake.
Why did you guys name the plane Charlie?
I don't know. Did you? I don't remember.
I think some of the men called it washing machine Charlie.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Or bed check Charlie.
Yeah.
So, were either of your brothers wounded, Mr. Shed? Were either of your brothers wounded?
Oh, yeah. Paul was. Paul was the youngest. Let's see. I'm trying to think.
He was hit on Guadalcanal, right?
Yeah.
What happened? Do you know?
Well, he was hit by a shell, I guess, and wounded in his backside. And he was transferred out of the unit.
So, do you remember the type of rations that you would get on the front lines on Guadalcanal?
All they got usually was canned hash or whatever they had.
After the Navy left, before unloading all of the cargo, you guys didn't have much rations left. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we were. Yeah, that's right.
So, do you remember trying to get food from other sources?
Well, we used some of the Japanese rice and whatever else they had.
And did you interact at all with any of the natives on Guadalcanal?
No, no, they went their own way. I never remember talking to any of them.
Do you remember anything about the Matanikau River?
What?
The Matanikau?
It sounded something like that.
I know your regiment saw a lot of action around the Matanikau River and also around Henderson Field.
Oh yeah, I remember Henderson Field.
What do you remember about Henderson Field?
Well, I remember them trying to get Henderson Field so they could land planes on it. And then they finally got steel plates and laid them down. And
Can you describe what Henderson Field looked like? Was it just a dirt strip or?
it was dirt first. Then they got these big steel plates and laid them down, and that made the airport better.
Do you remember anything about the Japanese attacks to try to take Henderson Field?
No, not firsthand.
Now, on Guadalcanal, there was a famous patrol called the Goldage Patrol.
Oh yeah, you know more about it than I do.
No. Tell me about when you first heard about the way Japanese treated the men they captured and how you all reacted when you first heard about stuff like that.
Well, we didn't appreciate the Japanese at all. And I still call the Japanese Japs. For a while, they didn't want to mention Japs. But
I guess what I'm trying to say is the Goldage Patrol, the Japanese literally murdered those men. They had taken them prisoner and then they killed them.
yeah.
I mean, what was that like for you when you heard about stuff like that, the atrocities the Japanese committed, knowing that if you ever got captured by the enemy, you were in deep trouble?
Yeah, well, I guess we just lived each day and hoped we make the next one.
So tell me, Mr. Shed, after Guadalcanal, what happens to you, sir?
Let's see, we finally were taken off the island and went to, where'd we go?
Australia?
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you remember the way that you all were treated when you first came to Australia?
Oh, we were heroes. Yeah.
I think you all went to Brisbane, right?
First went to Brisbane, and they transferred us to New Zealand. I don't know.
When you were in Australia, there was an incident. Do you remember the forced march you had to do?
Oh, I remember I don't remember a forced.
No, a forced. FORCED. Didn't they drive you guys out like 80 miles and then they made you march all the way back?
I don't remember that.
Maybe that was a different regiment then. No, it was the 5th. Anyways, so after Australia, you all prepared to go to New Britain.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about the journey to New Britain and what you remember about the landing, sir?
New Britain?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, we went to New Britain, and I remember Johnson was his name. He was a new lieutenant, and we were going up a hill, and he stood up to direct his platoon, and he got hit just like that, and which told anybody, don't stand up. And Johnson, his name, he was a lieutenant.
Where was he hit?
I don't know, he was killed right there.
From like a Japanese sniper or something like that?
Yes.
You know, New Britain, and he was your officer, right?
No. I was just a corporal.
No, I'm saying Johnson was your officer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you were there when he was hit.
Yeah.
Do you remember roughly how old he would have been?
He was probably in his 20s.
So, Mr. Shed, what do you remember about the terrain on New Britain and the difficulty about fighting in New Britain?
Well, it was a lot of mud, and it was wet, and trucks would almost get stuck in the mud.
There was, you mentioned about the mud, and it would be tough for the trucks, I'm sure, but you also had to live in the mud as an infantryman. I mean, what was that like? How would you guys go about living?
Well, not all I remember, but we went on a patrol one day, and on these patrols you went along the edge of the island, and and along the edge, these little streams would come into the ocean. And on one patrol, I remember I went through this little stream, and it was probably up to my knees, and coming back from the patrol, come to that same little stream, and all of a sudden I find myself up to my nose, because the tide had come in at that same time, and I pretty near drowned trying to get to the other side of that little stream, but I got through.
You know, some of the veterans who I've talked to who fought on New Britain, they also talk about the rain and how it seemed like it rained every day forever.
Yeah, there was a lot of rain, and you'd get soaking, and then the next day, with the heat and the sun, you'd dry out pretty well.
You know, but you were living in foxholes or slit trenches, right?
Well, yeah, sometimes.
How would you sleep at night if it's raining?
I forgot. Yeah.
You would just have to get wet.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember stories about your foxhole filling up with water?
Well, I can't say that I remember a specific time.
No, that's fine. One of the newspaper stories about you, it mentions a story where you were engaging the Japanese with your BAR on New Britain, and then you saw all the Japanese bullets going around you?
Yeah.
Could you tell me that story, please?
Yeah, we went on a patrol and went through the woods or brush, and as we got to the other side of the little skirmish we were in, the Japs started firing. And so I had a BAR, burning an automatic rifle, and I started firing back up into the other side of the brush there, and they started firing at me. I could see the shots hitting the ground. So I fired back. Of course, you could, with the BAR, you could pull the trigger and you could pull the trigger and probably 10 shots, that boom, boom, boom. And so I fired up into the, where I thought they were, the Japs, and then I backed up a little to get out of the way. And they kept firing, So then the rest of the squad what'd they do? Oh, they jumped into the stream. And I guess I kept firing. And then they, our forces lobbed some, I forgot.
Grenades?
No, lobbed some
Mortars?
mortars. Yeah, and the mortars, I don't know, might have killed some of the Japs. And
How far away would you say those Japanese soldiers were to you?
well, 50 yards. I don't.
And they were hidden in some of the brush, or they were out in the open?
Oh, they must. I don't know.
That's okay. No, I appreciate you sharing that story, sir. So, Mr. Shedd, can you tell me any more stories about times that you engaged the Japanese on New Britain?
Can't think of anything particular.
What was the reason they made you a BAR man?
I don't know. I often thought of that because I wasn't the biggest man, and BAR is a pretty heavy piece of machinery.
Do you remember how heavy it was?
No.
It was about 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Now, you would have had an assistant BAR man, right? You would have had an assistant gunner?
No. I was not an assistant. I was.
No, I said you would have had someone that was also your assistant. You were the gunner, and then you had an assistant gunner.
No.
Just you.
Yeah.
What did you think about the BAR compared to the rifle you were using before?
Well, I just was assigned to BAR, and that's where I was.
You had a... Just going back to Guadalcanal for a moment, you know, the 1st Marine Division, you all were among the very first men to engage the enemy after Pearl Harbor, you know?
Yes,
I mean,
I knew that.
you know, you guys were the first ones to really bring it back to the Japanese. But your equipment was not very good on Guadalcanal. Didn't you have a lot of World War I stuff still?
Yeah, I had a .03 rifle at first.
And your helmets, were they still from the World War I period? Do you know?
I don't know.
No worries. So, going back to New Britain, sir, one of your other brothers was wounded on New Britain. Is that right?
Yes, Bob.
And what happened to him?
Well, he was shot right through the chest, and it come out his back, and he had a scar, big scar there. But he come back to the unit after he got well.
So, were you with Bob when he was hit? Or
Well, I was close enough, so I said to Bob, I knew where he was. He wasn't too far away. So I said, I'm hit, but I'm okay. And that's all I said. I guess he heard me.
No, but that's when you were hit. But when Bob was hit on New Britain, I mean, were you one of the men that helped patch him up at first? When your brother Bob was shot?
No, I didn't see him, or I just said, I'm hit, I'm okay. So he stayed on Peleliu where he was hit, and I had already left.
So, well, I mean, what was that like for your mother, having her 3 boys, you know, all overseas, all in combat?
Well, I got a whole box of letters from my mother. She wrote just about every day.
Would she write one letter for all 3 of you, or she would write all 3?
Oh, both. Sometimes, but most of the time we weren't together, so she'd write
Separately.
separately.
What kind of things would your mom write to you about?
Well, just stuff that happens at home. The 2 sisters, and
So after New Britain, Mr. Shed, what happens to you?
after New Britain, then we went to Peleliu.
What was the importance of Peleliu?
Well, they was another stepping stone closer to Japan. And I've heard a lot of comments about it was unnecessary that they did that.
What are your personal thoughts about whether it was necessary or not?
I don't know. I just was just part of the whole war.
Now, the 5th Marine Regiment was actually on the first wave on Peleliu. Could you tell me, before you made the landing, what do you remember about the naval bombardment?
I remember that. Yeah. Many ships were firing, bombarding the coast, and it was just, you couldn't figure out anybody surviving that. But we that's when we got to the airport, and oh, where's my wallet? That little clipping of Norbert Rowan.
Yeah, it'd probably be best if you took it out with the camera, if you don't mind. Just hold that up to the camera, Mr. Shed.
Yeah.
And
On Peleliu, we landed right off the
you can put it
airport.
here. Why don't you tell me the story, sir, and then we'll show this to the camera, okay? So if you could just tell me that story from the beginning, please.
Yeah.
So you on Peleliu.
Yeah, we landed on Peleliu off the airport, and we're right on the edge of the airport, and a shell burst not too far from me and killed Norbert right there. And I saw the he was Catholic, I'm Protestant, but I saw the chaplain giving him the last rites. So I knew he was gone.
And he was hit from the same shell that went near you.
It wasn't too far from me. Not the same shell, but
and tell me about. Hold that up to the camera and tell me, what is that, sir?
This is a mass card, and of Norbert Rowan. It tells the date that he was killed. So I carried this for that many years.
You've carried that since the war?
That's right.
So that's 75 years.
That's it.
What was his full name, Mr. Shed?
Norbert. Norbert. Rowan. I don't know where. Rowan. ROWAN.
And were you close friends with him?
Yeah, he was one of the fellas that we played cards with when we could.
Can you tell me something about his personality or where he was from, or
Well, he was from New Jersey, and one of close friends.
how old would you say he was when he was killed?
Oh, he was probably 2 or 3 years older than me.
Did you go up to him while the chaplain was giving him last rites?
I didn't move.
So, but from your position, you could see the chaplain.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that story, sir. Could you tell me more about that airport and the crossing of the airport? I mean, you guys were under extreme enemy fire from the Japanese as you ran across that airfield.
I don't remember that particular thing.
The same airport or same airfield where Norbert was killed.
Yeah.
I've met other veterans that have talked about that airfield and how there wasn't much cover and you guys had to run across it.
Yeah, we crossed it. And I can't go into any other detail.
That's okay. Can you tell me about the actual landing on Peleliu, sir?
Well, let's see.
I believe you went in amphibious vehicles that time.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember taking on enemy fire while you were still in the water going in?
No. Can't remember what might have happened.
But once you hit the land, what do you remember about that, Mr. Shedd?
Just that we tried to get farther.
So, if you wouldn't mind, could you share the story of how you were wounded one more time, sir, on Peleliu?
I wasn't wounded on Peleliu. I was wounded on.
You can say it.
Yeah, you were wounded on Peleliu. You even wrote it down once. Yeah.
Is that from the war?
Yeah, he'd written some things down.
Can I see that?
Oh, yeah. He'd written this down a bit. Are you off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's still on, but it's fine. I mean,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Those are some,
no,
Quick
talking
little-
points.
yeah, little note. He wrote that down a few years ago. You were wounded on Peleliu. That's what you have written down.
Oh, Peleliu. Yeah.
Yeah. Uncle Paul was Guadalcanal, Uncle Bob was
New Britain.
New Britain, and you were Peleliu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So could you tell me that story, please, Mr. Shedd, of how you were wounded?
Oh, yeah. It was the middle of the night, and I was crouched in some kind of a depression. And about the middle of the night, a shell, probably a 130 millimeter shell, burst up in the top of the trees. And it felt like a hammer had hit my right ankle. And So and Bob was back with us. So I hollered to Bob. I said, I'm hit, but I'm okay. So then I was led down the path a ways and eventually to the hospital ship. And I got on the hospital ship, and a couple days later they extracted that piece of lead out of my ankle, and that was the end of my
Combat.
yeah.
What was that like? I mean, what did it feel like to have the shrapnel hit you?
Oh, well, it just felt like I still got the scar there. So it healed up years ago.
Can you talk about the coral on Peleliu and how hard it made it to dig in?
I don't remember that.
Don't worry about that then. I'm going over some of your notes. There was an incident on Guadalcanal, sir. On October 15th, this is what you wrote. On October 15th, a formation of Jap bombers were headed straight for us.
Oh,
Several killed or wounded. Paul seriously wounded. I got nicked by coral. Right. But won't show you. Are you guys able to explain that? Where he was?
I think you got
I think he got hit in the butt.
I think you got hit in the butt on Guadalcanal, right? With some coral.
who, Paul?
No, coral. 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 Did that hit you in the butt? That's what you wrote down.
So on October 15th, some Japanese planes came and bombed your guys' position. Your brother was wounded, but you got some coral.
You wrote it down. You want to look at it?
Yeah,
Yeah, give it to him. That'll refresh his. He might need his glasses.
Sure.
Too.
I think that's where it would be. Usually when they say they won't show you.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Did he write this to you guys, or who did he write this
No,
for?
he wrote that a few years ago. Might have been before the VPR interview that he wrote that stuff.
Oh,
down.
just to prepare for
I'm
it?
thinking maybe that's when he did it. Yeah.
That's right, you got to keep this, yeah.
Oh,
This is
yes.
great.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice to have him his own.
Yeah.
I'm surprised though, I didn't see this. He covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
He's done very well.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. He mentions that. Are you on?
Yeah.
Being a barman, a little more. I was listening to him talk about it, but I don't know if you read that.
Yeah, no, I haven't read this
Yeah.
one yet.
It was more the.
We covered this one pretty good. This is the first. I'll make sure you get some of this. Paul joined us.
You don't remember that?
Not,
I think you wrote some of this down a couple years ago before you did that Vermont Public Radio interview, I think.
oh,
Yeah.
Do me a favor, sir. Just take the glasses off, please.
There. I'll get out of your way.
Thank you. So, I mean, do you remember on Guadalcanal, Mr. Shed? Do you remember a large formation of Japanese planes bombing your position?
Well, all I remember is, say, a half a dozen bombers were coming right straight towards me, and I figured this is it. But they dropped their bombs, and I was still here.
What do you remember about the American casualties from those bombers? Were some of the men killed or wounded?
Might have been same action. I don't know.
No, I said when the Japanese planes dropped those bombs, were any of the other Marines wounded or killed from it?
I don't know. There's a couple other instances, but right now I've got to go to the bathroom.
Sure. Mr. Shed?
Yeah,
Would
I'm
if you could read it out loud.
yeah. Okay. On September 15th, 1944, we landed on Petaliloo. And several rocket ships ahead. We were in Alligator craft and came off LSTs. Took the airstrip first day. Lost Rowan the second day. I was hit in the ankle on the 25th by a 137 millimeter shrapnel. And I was taken to a hospital ship nearby. Back in the U.S. at Hingham, Mass. Naval Ammunition Depot.
Oh, that's perfect. I'll have you read just one other then, if you don't mind.
You want all this?
If you wouldn't mind.
In Melbourne, Australia, 9 months. And Paul joined us there. Had a good time, new friends and so forth. Paul transferred to home, and then we went to Midland Bay, New Guinea, before landing on Cape Gloucester, New Britain, December 28th, 1943. Bob wounded and evacuated, shot through the left chest. We patrolled eastward on the north coast towards Tallahassee for 2 months. At one point, while crossing the stream, I think Roaring Brook like Roaring Brook. Japs opened Chap opened the through so mortars could be used. Bring a BAR, being a BAR man, at the time I stayed until the coast was clear, then helped them out of the water. I fired in their direction and left New well,
That's the right page, yeah.
left New Britain March 44 for Russell Island of Pavu, Bob Hope and Jerry Colonna and Francis Langford. They landed on the beach in a Piper Cub.
Okay, sir. So there was before you went to Peleliu, you all stopped at Pavuvu, this little island. Do you remember Pavuvu?
I remember the name.
It was in the Russell Islands, and
Yeah,
what do you remember about the conditions on Pavuvu when you first got there?
I don't know. It was just a rest stop.
Do you remember anything about the crabs?
No.
From my understanding, there were hundreds of thousands of crabs all over the little island.
I can't remember that there were that many.
Don't worry, that's fine. But going back to Peleliu, so you mentioned when you were reading that there were rocket ships.
Yeah.
What's a rocket ship?
Well, a ship would head to the beach and they would be firing many rockets at once, and a lot of noise and smoke.
Can you tell me about some of your engagements with the Japanese on Peleliu? Do you remember firing the BAR on Peleliu?
No.
Do you recall seeing any of the Japanese soldiers on Peleliu?
No.
So the main time that you saw them was on New Britain.
I don't remember. You're taxing my brain. I can't go into any more detail.
That's fine. Could you just tell me about what was it like to see your family again after the war?
Oh. Well, I remember coming home on the train in Center Rutland. I got off the train and started walking home. And evidently my father knew I was coming, but I got part way home and he come along and picked me up.
And what was that like to see your father for the first time?
Oh, well, quite a thing to see the folks again.
Were you the first one home, or was Paul the first one home?
Paul was, 'cause he came home a couple years before I did, 'cause he was wounded, got better, and they shipped him home. But then he went back and joined the outfit again.
Did you have any difficulties readjusting to civilian life? After
No, none of us did that I know of. We just come home and went back to work.
You didn't have any nightmares or anything?
No,
Did loud noises bother you?
no.
So totally unaffected from the war?
Well, I don't know if that is totally. I still remember it. Yeah.
What kind of person, Mr. Shedd, do you want people to always think of you as?
Just be a good citizen. I don't know. I'm not much of one up here.
I'm sure you are more than you admit. Do you want people to always think of you as a Marine?
Yeah.
Would you go to the Marine Corps reunions after the war?
Yeah, I just went to one a week or 2 weeks ago.
Where was that?
Dorset, just south of here, about 20 miles.
That was the 1st Marine Division reunion?
It was any Marine.
Was it the Marine Corps League or?
It was celebrating the Marine Corps' birthday.
Oh, okay.
So that was in November, I think.
Yeah.
Seems like a couple weeks, but I think that was November.
November 10th, yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any other World War II Marines there?
There was one other World War II Marine there, right? There was one other World War II Marine there because you were the oldest, so you got to cut the cake with the youngest Marine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But there was one other gentleman there.
Are you guys in touch with him, or you don't know him?
I don't know him. Who could get his name, probably. Yeah, I didn't think of that now that I'm...
No worries.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Where's Dorset?
Dorset is half an hour south of here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he serve in that other World War II Marine? Was he also in the 1st Division, 1st Marine?
Was he a 1st Marine? Do you?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Where's the scrapbook?
Oh, that's right here.
Oh, well.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, so.
I think what I'll just do is I'll just let him go through it, and I'll have the camera. And then if he wants to point out something, I'll let him point it out. But
there you go.
Who's Polo? Maybe it's Polly? Folks. Oh, dear folks.
Oh, dear folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wrote it. Yeah, Don. Yeah. Yeah.
So your mom kept all the letters that you wrote?
Yeah, I've still got a box of them, but I think a lot of them have been just thrown away.
So, can you tell me the story about the pig that you killed on New Britain?
Oh, yeah. Is there a picture there?
Yeah, I'll include the picture later, but could you tell me the story?
Yeah. Well, on New Britain, yeah, there was a pig, I suppose, the natives, and we, the three of us, butchered the pig, and we happened to have a big kettle, and we cooked it, and I don't know whether they threw ketchup in there or something, but they cooked it, and that's what the picture is. So we had stew.
Do you remember a guy named John Mason from Rutland?
John Nathan?
Mason. Mazan.
Not really.
No, it's
I remember there was a Naven lived there someplace.
So, do you remember, when you first joined the Marine Corps, there was the old breed, the old timers?
Yeah.
What do you remember about the way they acted toward all you guys who had just joined the service for the war?
No, they were just the older fellas. We all worked together. I don't know. They called them the old breed. Yeah.
Did you have any other experiences with diseases besides malaria on any of the islands?
No.
Okay, sir.
Okay, Art Cheney was one of our group, and we were on New Britain, and he was on one of us on New Britain, and he stood up and got in the line of fire, and a sniper killed him. He was shot through the helmet, and he died right there. And I helped with the litter. I helped carry him down the hill.
How old would you say Art Cheney was when he was killed?
About my age.
Do you remember anything in particular about him?
No.
Okay, sir. So what we'll do now, if you could just tell the camera, Mr. Shed, what are we going to be looking at right now?
Well, this here is a picture of my father in World War I. He was in World War I.
And right now, Mr. Shedd, can you tell me about the book that you're holding? Well, it's a scrapbook, is that right?
Yes.
So, I'm just going to come over and we'll just look at them page by page. So let's start with, if you go to the very beginning, please. I'll have to have you move. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Shedd. So, can you tell me about this page? What are we looking at when it says Paris?
This?
Yeah.
Well, that's me.
Just hang on 1 second. Okay, could you say that one more time? Could you just point to yourself again? Mr. Shedd, what is that a picture of?
That's me.
How old were you in that photo?
Well, probably 12 or 13.
I think he's just joking. Yeah. No, Mr. Shedd, that's when you first joined the Marine Corps.
Oh. Okay.
So just turn the page for me. So what are we looking at over here? What's the Marine Corps hymn?
Oh. Yeah, that's the Marine. The words for the Marine Corps hymn. Yeah.
Could you hand him his glasses, please?
That's my father and mother. Oh, I haven't got.
That's why you thought you were only 12.
And that's us signing up. The three of us.
That's the actual day that you joined the Marine Corps?
Yes, I think so. And that's me. And that's one of the Marines. That's Paul.
Turn page, yeah.
There's three of us again.
Here, just move your finger for me. Yeah. Now point to who's who.
This is Paul, Don, and Bob.
And what's that a photo of, Mr. Shedd?
This is a photo of on one of the islands, we butchered a pig and we cooked it.
Could you just turn that photo to me? No, other way. But yeah, thank you. Which one are you?
I'm on the end. I'm on the end.
Do you remember, was that a good tasting pork?
Probably not. And there's a picture of the three of us.
Who's who?
This is Paul. No, this is me. This is Paul and this is Bob.
Now, can you tell me about the Neptune Club? Right there.
Oh,
What is that a certificate for?
this was, I guess, 'cause we went across the
Equator.
equator. So we got a,
Do you remember the kind of things that you had to do aboard
No.
the ship?
not, no.
You turn.
Guadalcanal. And this was somebody from Center Rutland, Mason, and his sister. And I went on a date with his sister,
That's why you saved the photo?
I suppose. Oh, this is from my cousin.
Well, tell me about some of the stuff on this page. Some of the coins.
Oh, I don't know. They're just coins. There's a piece of Japanese. And
Here, Mr. Shedd, can you turn that towards me? Thank you.
Australian coins. And I must have got a picture in Brisbane, I think.
Okay, you can turn the page.
Wow. I want to get this out. This is the V-mail we used to write home. And then they would take a,
Photograph it.
yeah, photograph it and send it back in a little envelope.
But how did you keep the original letter?
I don't know. I guess I never sent it in, but I wrote it. And there's the officers
Who censored it?
sent it. Yeah.
Now, what's this a photo of below it? Yeah, what's that?
This?
Yeah.
Just something out of the newspaper, I guess.
And what's this on the next page?
Well, another picture of us three.
Who's who?
I don't know. The three of us were there. I guess that's me, Paul, and Bob.
Okay.
Purple Heart awarded to Paul Shedd. That's him again. There's a letter to my mother from one of the ladies in Australia.
Why did one of the Australian ladies write to your mom?
Well, we got to writing back and forth.
I think they stayed with him.
Did you stay with that family?
I don't remember staying with them, but
You were good friends with them somehow.
oh yeah,
Because when I was a little girl,
yeah, they.
Christmas card from Australia.
Now that's the V-mail.
That's the email the way it.
So that big letter would turn into that.
Yeah.
Mr. Shed, what's that a picture of?
This,
Yeah.
I don't know, just a picture of people walking. I don't know.
And what about stuff on this page? What are these tickets or stubs?
Well, that's me. I might have been carrying the colors. And this must have been back in the States. And these tickets were some movie or something. There's a letter from Bob to home. And some artist down there did my, I guess that's me.
Is that during the war or after?
Yeah. Oh, this is in Australia. And this is where I got my Purple Heart.
What, the ceremony?
Yeah.
Here, let me zoom in on that picture. Which one are you?
I thought I had a. I think I'm right on the end, but I don't see a mark there.
That's okay.
Purple Heart Ceremony.
That's your discharge.
You through with that?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that's when I. June 1st, 45. Sick Bay, Hingham, Mass.
Can I see the photo?
I think I had my malaria started up there.
Yeah, you can turn. What does that mean? Road patrol. Down on the bottom. On the right hand, sir? Yeah.
Oh, that was Schwatka. After he got out of the service, he was on the road patrol. And this picture of me, the Legion used to meet at a little place. It's torn down now, but up here, across the road. Well, there's my brother, Paul, and Bob. Well, there's another picture of us. The three of us. Memorial Day, 1947.
Was that it? No?
Guess I got it. I don't think this is. Oh, there's Schwatka.
Who's Schwatka?
Yeah, back there had the picture of him. Probably don't want these.
Oh wow, you went to the 9th reunion. That was back in the 50s. So that, I mean, there must have been thousands of veterans there.
Guess that's it. Hi, my name is Don Ched. I'm 97. I'm going to tell you a little about one of my Marine friends, Norbert Rowan. He was killed on Peleliu in 1944. And yeah, we were on Peleliu, and a shell come down and burst and killed him right there. And I was watching, and a priest come along and gave him his last rites. And that's what I remember.
Where were you on Peleliu when this happened?
We were going across the airport, and going across the airport, and the shell burst, and he died right there. And a priest happened to be nearby, and he gave him his last rites.
Were there any other shells that burst, or was that the only
Oh,
shell?
there was a lot of activity going on there. I don't know.
And so, if you could explain to the camera about the prayer card. Could you tell me about that?
Several weeks later, I received this prayer card from a friend, and it tells about Norbert Rowan.
And can you tell me how long you've carried that, sir?
I've carried it since I received this by mail from a friend. So that was many years ago.
75 years.
75 years I've carried it.
What's the reason you've kept carrying it?
Just to remind me that he wasn't the only one that died that I know. And that is why I carried it.
Sure. And why don't you hold that up to the camera and explain? That's Norbert.
This here is a picture of Norbert that my friend that's doing this photo gave me. I've never seen this before.
Does he look like you remember?
No, I don't. Yeah. No.
Perfect.